My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Let's dive into it a little deeper. If you have not been following Luna, this is one of those projects. We've had a couple of videos here on the channel about them. I would recommend just to get yourself in the framework of really understanding what Luna is and does. Take a look at some of our past videos on this because we do go into a little bit more of a deep dive around the structure of Luna. What I want to talk about today is really the overall strategic positioning of what Luna can mean to the marketplace. And if you look at not only news, but also what's happening from an aspect of the token itself, where UST is playing into this, there's a lot of things that are really starting to come together in the Kwon universe, who is the founder of Luna, Terra LUNA. And I think a lot of this is starting to play into the hands of a real DeFi mega champion for the industry. So it's gonna be interesting to break down. I want to jump to this first story, and that is Terra LUNA price nears key level after rallying 45% this week. Of course, everybody knows Luna has been on a tear and is one of the hottest tokens out there. A lot of this was right after Luna had taken a little bit of a heat for some challenges that they had faced. But in essence, the fact that it turned around so quickly even surprised me, because I'm a big Luna fan. I own it. I'm a full supporter of the ecosystem of what Luna is trying to build. But even I was surprised at how quickly Luna has been able to bounce back, especially during this time. Now, even though we are seeing Bitcoin right now edging in on the 45K mark, so it has been something that has been pretty cool. But when you look at this one right here, descending channel risks Luna's decline. This is where Luna has been trading lower inside a falling channel. This is what they were talking about. And then that arise, and then right here you see the downward channel starting back really around December, which was the concern that a lot of people had really. Now what you're looking at here, and if I can jump and kind of just, there we go, a little bit closer for you guys, you'll see that it's starting to bust above this resistance line, and it's happened a couple of times here before during this particular chart. And this was back in late December, then we saw it again right here in mid to late January. The big bottom out, which was really the one that I think a lot of people were really concerned about, because even when you look at some of these resistance lines, it had busted through the line of potential upwards, so now it's showing that bearish movement. But right now, what's happening is Luna is definitely starting to rebound and showing some good signs of opportunity. Let's take a look at just UST, just to see the amount of just adoption in general. Take a look at this. Let me zoom up on that just a little bit here. And this is the all-time, and you can kind of see right here on November 7th, we had a market cap around 2.8 billion, and that was volume in that was 128.48 million. Look how quickly this grew from November 7th right here to November 19th. Remember, this was in the heyday of when Bitcoin was essentially on its all-time high run, and this did not necessarily slow down. And in reality, right here, what we're looking at between February 2nd and right here around February 8th was where we started to see a little bit of that fall off. And then again, UST just moving right back up the charts in terms of overall use case scenario. So I think this, again, just shows more and more. And just to compare this to Tether, because this is Tether's all-time, and obviously Tether's been a stablecoin for quite some time, but the fact that we've got Luna, UST, really playing into this whole ecosystem, especially in terms of value and marking values, is pretty impressive, I think. And as we look at the market kind of moving in that direction, especially around yields, things of that nature that really kind of play into this. Let's take a look at their chart right here. We'll go to the 3-month, and just to show you how quickly, because this is the area where Luna was really struggling right here after this fall, which happened on January 23rd. And we saw it come down here to its all-time, well, one of its all-time lows at $44.13. And that would have been the time to pick it up, and of course sideways action, and then boom, this is what we're living with right now, which is Luna trading at a little over 88 bucks. The likelihood of this hitting maybe even the $100 mark even this month will be real. So going to be a hot one for a big March, I think, for a lot of different crypto projects as we start to see. And if you've been watching our CPI data, I'll probably pull up that in a little bit, but if you look at our CPI data, even though there had been bearish signs by a lot of different outlets that were looking at trends over the past couple of weeks, our data was slightly trending up. And I think in essence gave us a little bit of a precursor to what we're seeing right now in the marketplace. So very cool stuff indeed. If you look at where Bitcoin is holding right now at 43.8, up 8%, a little over almost 9% over the last 24. Of course, we did see Bitcoin really get some good action right here over the past 24, where it was right on the $45,000 clip right there at 44,755. So anyway, good stuff for the market. I think is where we could potentially see some of these projects move. Luna jumps 50% as US stablecoin gets 1 billion Bitcoin reserve. This was probably one of the biggest news items for Luna as far as a support, because remember, the ecosystem in which stablecoins are typically propped up or pegged against are usually real-time assets. In many cases, if you look at how commercial paper plays a big role in Terra or in Tether, and you also look at how all sorts of bonds and actual cash play a big role with USDC, you can kind of see the markers that really make a quality stablecoin. And it's why USDC, and even to a certain extent, Tether, have been kind of pretty much the stalwarts of the industry. But I think we will continue to see more and more use of UST in this space. And with this $1 billion Bitcoin reserve, this to me is one of the big keys for how this could actually move Luna, UST, into one of the top 3 stablecoins on a global basis. If you look at what they said here, buoyed by positive news flow, Luna, now the native token and smart contract of Terra, has become the best performing major cryptocurrency last 24 hours. We know that. It's risen by 15%, $55 mark. We now see that going to the $88 mark, and we're going to continue to see that. And I think the fact that we're going to see more and more support around Luna and how this strategy is being implemented, from Do Kwon's perspective, really he is after a DeFi universe. We'll talk, and I'll show you an interview he did with Jason Calacanis on the All In podcast. And he does go into a lot of these kind of structures about this, but we'll definitely show you a little bit more in detail of where that might be. This right here, though, is the point. LFG announced Tuesday that it had raised $1 billion through private token sales to build the Bitcoin reserve, and the buyers will lock up the coins for a 4-year vesting period. The funding round was led by the likes of Jump Crypto and 3 Arrows Capital, big boys in the camp. Rising BTC reserve is a smart move and may result in lesser fluctuations in US Terra during the future bouts of market volatility. And I think this is where it, in essence, starts to really become a major player in the stablecoin marketplace. So something to keep a watch out. And if you look at staking rewards just in general on Luna and look at the activity that we've seen, this is over the last 30 days right here, a little bit of fall off right here, but look at this 90-day run. And you can kind of see just this growth right here of where Luna staking continues to fly. So interesting stuff. I think we'll continue to see more and more faith behind the ecosystem of what Do Kwon is building. And I think it's going to show in some big ways in terms of the Luna price of going forward. So right here, FTX, upcoming listing on FTX, Luna now spot market. You'll be able to get it there. That's another big advantage as we continue to see Luna kind of spread its wings on more and more exchanges. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. Tokenist interview, CEO discusses Luna, Mirror, Chai, TerraSwap, and more. There was a lot in this, and I would recommend that you guys take a look at it. But one of the things I wanted to highlight was this one right here. And it's really kind of his whole approach on what he's talking about. And that is how Terra is becoming an entire ecosystem. So he's talking about TerraUSD, TerraSwap, Mirror Finance, introduced to the different parts of the ecosystem. And this to me is what makes Luna so intriguing as an ecosystem themselves. When you look at what the overall strategy is for Luna in general, this is a very strong position. And whether you think about what Mike Arrington has done in supporting Do Kwon's effort on both Mirror Protocol and Anchor Protocol, there's a lot of big money that are still major players of the future of where Luna is going. So I think this is a big opportunity just because of the fact that the ecosystem is just built out so well. And I think we'll continue to see more and more growth on this. I want to get over to Mirror because they kind of talk a little bit right here. Mirror Finance, Mirror Protocol, synthetic assets protocol built on Terra, designed to provide real-world exposure to all asset classes such as U.S. tech equities, commodities, ETFs, crypto assets, and more. And think of it this way. This is kind of how he explains it. Mirror is like a decentralized, censorship-resistant Robinhood that is globally accessible and increases demand for UST. Back to my point. Since CDP positions to mint mirrored assets, M assets, are collateralized with UST. So that kind of gets into the exchange point of being able to support the stablecoin side of things. So all applications are built on top of Terra, which of course increases the demand for the network's underlying stablecoins. So you can kind of see how all of this ecosystem starts to blend in and feed on itself and also support itself around these protocols. So I think that is another big strategy. And I want to get to a couple of things. Of course, I want to thank our sponsor, iTrust Capital. If you're looking at more of a long-term play on your crypto assets, this is one of the strategies that I would recommend taking. This is how you would play it though. It's much like a regular exchange. You've got access to all sorts of different tokens. You can actually manage those within the account itself. So it's kind of like a mini exchange. You do pay a 1% fee. There are no fees that you have to pay monthly. So that's kind of a big advantage. And they have been adding a ton of new tokens. Let me just kind of scroll down here and show you some of the tokens that they have added. Obviously the most popular, you've got Axie Infinity on the list that just came on here over the past couple of weeks. That's one of the more popular ones now. Decentraland, Bitcoin, Chainlink, Polkadot, and Ethereum. And of course, if you want to check out all of them, you just click there, go to all your assets. So you can kind of take a look if this is something for you. And of course, one way you can do this is just click our link below. You're going to be able to find the funding rewards. You're going to get $100 in funding rewards now with iTrust Capital just by joining with our link below. So we want to thank those guys for sponsoring in today. Let's get over to this topic right here, and this is why a simple payment app is integral to the success of Terra's blockchain. And the whole point behind this, when you look at general payment apps, let me zoom up on that so you guys can kind of see it a little bit better. When you look at the blockchain industry in general, and I think what we will continue to see is ecosystems that have very fluid and sexy payment integrations and are capable of handling the TPS, transactions per second, to be able to scale are going to be the ones that will be very, critical on the adoption of crypto, but even more so, I think we'll start to see migration into these kinds of projects. And I think that's where Luna comes into play because it does have that capability of really kind of moving in to the next layer of what they're doing. And here's the Chai wallet. So let's talk a little bit about what that is. Chai is a Korean mobile payment service similar to PayPal. So it has a, really a very direct comparison. With the app downloaded, user can connect their bank account, make online payments simple. Terra and Chai all the way back this summer. This was back going with the partnership. Recently gone live in Timon. Now remember, one thing about Korea is that they are one of the countries that are really advancing blockchain adoption. And I think as we see payments moving into this, and you look at countries like Korea that are really advancing adoption, big opportunity here for sure. All right, so let's pick up just a little bit about Terra Station because this is another aspect of building these ecosystems out there, and having wallets I think are going to be one of the key things. And if you think about this right here, this kind of hits it on the head. Many of you love MetaMask, it's perfectly good. Others don't because they don't use a ton of ETH services and are wary due to the many phishing attempts. Listen, I've had problems with MetaMask, so that is an issue that I think has to really change for major adoption and also really massive onboarding opportunities. So when you look at that, look at the station or the Terra Station wallet features, flagship ecosystem. You're going to be able to stake, swap, and connect through your browser all within the ecosystem app, buy and hold your NFTs, and then also making governance proposals if you are involved in the ecosystem like that. So directly within the wallet, you can stake. I think we'll see more and more wallets doing these kinds of functions, but you can kind of see what they've done here with Terra Station, the wallets. Nice design too, but staking within there, is cool. Right here, this is swapping. To me, this is one of the best features out there of being able to do a swap. There's a handful of exchanges that you can do this on right now on swaps, and I know they're getting ready to open up swaps even on projects like Celsius. That to me is going to be one of the big features. And again, back to another wallet. The other thing is browser connection, all important ecosystem, Anchor tied in, Mirror, Kujira, Spectrum, all tied in. Then you get into NFTs. Now you kind of get the picture of what I'm talking about. You cannot do all of these things within your MetaMask, your Phantom wallet to a certain extent, and then all of the different types of trust, like iTrust or the Trust wallet out there. Those are the kind of scenarios that you are faced with in terms of limitations. And I think as we start to see what's happening here with Luna and kind of the future of wallets is going to be big for Terra Station. So I like it. Let's also talk about DeFi, because Terra and Luna reaches major milestone in the DeFi category. And I think this is the overall strategy that Kwon has been really building for quite some time. And I want to kind of jump right here to this. What if I told you Terra Money was on the verge of capturing 10% of all the TVL total value locked in DeFi? That's a pretty big statement right there when you think about one protocol being able to control that much in the DeFi world. And this goes back to the ecosystems and the strength of which this ecosystem is being built. So a lot happening here. I want to jump to this interview that Jason Calacanis did, and I've kind of clipped this to where you can kind of get a little bit of an insight on Kwon talking a little bit about DeFi and why the future is so important.
The mission of DeFi is that if you look at traditional finance, most of what happens is based on sort of a hierarchy of centralized middlemen. So, for example, if you look at the U.S. economy, everything starts from the Fed and the U.S. government, and then there's a consortium of commercial banks that do business or have an exclusive rights to do business with the central bank, and then fintech apps and so on and so forth. So how the system works is that you need to trust middlemen at each step of the layer in order for the financial system to all work. In decentralized finance, the idea is that you don't need to have any one of those middlemen, right? You can just simply put your trust or at least have literacy in the code that you happen to be running for, let's say, your savings app, for your lending needs, for your FX swaps, and so on and so forth.
All right, so as you can see, I mean, Kwon does a really good job with Jason trying to explain what they're trying to do from a DeFi standpoint. And I think that is, when you think about visionaries in the space, and you look at a handful of guys and people in general that have really made a big difference, I think Kwon is one of those types of people. And he's also setting up a framework in which globalization of money, globalization of value is starting to shift the tides and also kind of turn some heads, which is another problem that Luna is starting to face. And it's like I've said many times, when you start to shift the ground beneath people's feet, they get a little bit uneasy. And I think this is where traditional finance is really starting to take a look at these DeFi projects, especially ones like Luna and just their whole ecosystem, and kind of scratch their head and go, wait a minute, this is a real threat to status quo. And I think that is going to be something that we're going to continue to see playing out. For example, court orders on Kwon to comply with the SEC's subpoenas. Now, remember when the SEC served Kwon, I don't know if you guys heard the story, but he was essentially speaking here in the United States. Now, remember, he's a Korean citizen, but he was speaking here in the United States at a conference, I think it was in New York, and the SEC essentially were waiting for him off the side of the stage and served him with the subpoena. And when you look at this story, court ordered Terraform Labs CEO to comply with the SEC's investigation. Basically, this was on Mirror Protocol. And then the first received 2 subpoenas from the SEC in September, and then as he attended the Messari Mainnet conference in New York, Mirror Protocol's listing also of synthetic securities is likely the reason for the SEC subpoenas. And this is where we get into this whole aspect around synthetic securities, algorithmic stablecoins. Those kind of scenarios really start to freak out, I think, a lot of the traditional finance people, especially when you think about where the SEC is going and what you think about the middlemen that kind of run the ecosystem. Middlemen are really banks, and that is going to play into how a lot of this is flowing into the next layer of where DeFi is going. The SEC is moving forward with its mirror protocol investigation. Court's documents revealed Thursday that the district judge has ordered Kwon to comply with the securities situation. The filing dated February 17th states that the court has reviewed all the parties' filings and ruled on the SEC's application. So this is looking like it's going to go forward. Now, it's interesting to me because this is one of those projects that has a lot of potentials. I won't say that it could get into one of those XRP level, but when you think about what XRP and Ripple has been trying to do with global finance and payment systems, essentially displacing SWIFT as a global communication system of being able to move, value around the world. That's kind of what is happening in the DeFi ecosystem with Luna, in the essence of them opening up an ecosystem that is much greater than the sum of its parts, and it's really creating a very unique position for Luna as a whole. And you're already seeing this in staking, support of the token, US Terra is growing, and then all of these protocols are also expanding. The big funds are coming behind them. There's a lot of things moving in the right direction for Luna. All right, so this, I think, again, paints a big picture for Terra. It paints a really good positive motion. Now, and I'm always worried about anything that involves the SEC because it does put a little bit of a damper on many of these things. But I think some of these projects get so big. And remember, the difference here is the fact that Terra could operate, much like Ripple, can operate autonomously outside the United States. And because Mirror Protocol, being US organization, because of that, we're starting to see, and access to it mainly, is here in the States. That's the only reason really the SEC has been able to jump in on this. So I think this could be a scenario where we start to see all of this kind of moving around. Now, there's some other things that are happening. Why Kwon hyped up this UST-based airdrop. And then this is, again, another big bomb that I think he continues just to drop on the space. But I love this little tweet right here, right there. I'm coming in. Incoming transition. Mars lockup begins now at lockdrop.mars protocol. And just to give you an idea where this is going, this is another protocol, much like an Anchor and a Mirror and so on. Users will yield from protocol's governance Mars token by locking any amount of the stablecoin for up to the next 3 to 18 months, clarified in the official announcement. After this period that concluded, the user will be able to withdraw 100% of their initial investment. The team behind the protocol set. And that's where it gets fun. And this is Terra enables more yield farming opportunities. And again, this just goes back in the DeFi strategy. Created as an open source algorithm and non-custodial credit protocol supported by its own governance model, the Mars protocol will distribute 10 million Mars governance tokens to participants within the Terra ecosystem. The airdrop has the objective of helping the Mars to function properly. And again, this is going to be a drop that's happening only to the Terra owners. I think it was right here. Yep. Luna holders will benefit from the launch as stated by the team. Basically, if you owned Luna stakers and needed to be stakers by January 1st, 2022, then you would have been able to get this airdrop. So again, just another support mechanism that really kind of flies in the face of the future of where all of this is going. I want to jump to the chart just to show you where the sentiment has been running on Luna, because this is one of those things that we continuously look at. If you're not joined in on the CPI, you guys should come on, because our crypto power index does exactly what I'm going to show you right now, and that is measures, and we're getting ready to add some new features to this, but the way we're going to do it is, and this is something we just added last week, is where we're reporting on on Fridays and on Mondays, and we're dropping, so you get a weekend sentiment report on the overall market and on all the big ones. We're getting ready to add in the big projects, most likely the top 10, maybe not, obviously not the stablecoins, but the top 10 protocols and or projects that are listed out there by market cap, to where you'll get more active sentiment data on an ongoing 12-week span. So when you jump to Luna, this kind of gives you an example. Had you been doing this with our data with Bitcoin, you would have had upward trend, and you would have got a chance to see that prior to what we're watching Bitcoin do right now. But the same thing with Luna right here. All the way back here into January, sentiment holding at 77. They had a 77.16. This anytime you see sentiment amplification hovering closely together, it usually means we're going to see some upward trend, and that was exactly what we did see. We saw sentiment start to fall slightly, and then amplification basically drop, and that's usually going to indicate the downward trend, which is what we caught. And remember, this was done right here on a green day, where it could have easily went right back up, but we were looking at a potential fall on where, and that's essentially what happened. Because if you look at what we lost right there from that green candle right here to the bottom, that was 43% right there. So that would have been a good example of really understanding how sentiment started to flow down. Sentiment continued. We checked it in the middle of that period, which was right here on January 25th. Also, amplification falling 74 and 73. Kind of bottoming out right here. We pulled another data point right here on February 3rd, 73.92, and this is where amplification flipped. And when we see amplification flip on any projects, this is where it usually indicates, again, more upward movement. And that's exactly what happened. We had a little bit of movement up and then a little bit of an undercore of what was happening with the Terra. And then right here on a green candle day, this was on February 21st, a 74.78 and an AMP score of 76.03. We publish these on our historical data on the CPI, so you can go back and actually kind of see how I am showing this paint up right here. But this shows 74.48 and a 76.03, which is almost a 2-point move in amplification. And that's the kind of movement we've seen right there. So if you look at the growth right there, if you were paying attention, you're talking about right there at 84% growth in a very short period of time. In fact, going from right here on March 2nd, back here to February 21st. So really about a week. And that's the kind of movement scenario that we continue to see in this space. Last up is just a couple of things. The Lunaverse, which I thought is, sometimes I kind of tongue-in-cheek look at these projects, but if it's got Kwon involved, this is one of those guys that, he's just that kind of ninja, so to speak, and has the ability to kind of put just his thought toward action around development. The ecosystem support these types of projects, and I think with Lunaverse, it's going to be interesting. So they're sharing some details here about upcoming integration of the Terra Racer. A lot of stuff happening there. I want to jump to their website because this kind of shows. Let me refresh this a little bit for you guys and show a little bit about this. This is basically, and of course, our guys tell me that this is an Unreal Engine template. So, I mean, it's not really that special in the sense, but what it usually indicates to me when I see someone of this gravitas, meaning Kwon, start to move in this direction, I'm less worried about the early stage of the projects because they're in most likely the stage in which they have to start creating strategies, building out the ecosystem of how they're going to try to plug this all in. I'm more interested in what his overall vision is of this. And if he's already starting to do this kind of, element, in other words, using a template to go out there and kind of show an Unreal Engine, metaverse environment, he's already thinking in this direction. And when you put great minds behind big ideas, it's almost like manifestation. And it's the thing that I talk about all the time is if you're really involved in something, you get so close to a project and you feel like you can pull a trigger on something that can really scale. Sometimes you're going to hit home runs on these, sometimes they may not. But I think with what his strategy has been with all the different protocols and how Luna has been able to really grow at that level, this might be turning into something, that we have to keep a watch on. So very interesting stuff. If you guys are listening in over on the podcast, we do these breakdowns. We'll do a lot of this from time to time. Remember, this is not investment advice. The idea behind these is we're going to give you a little bit of detail, jump into our market movers, and really just kind of give you an insight and hopefully paint a picture for you. And I think that's what we did in today's episode, was give you some understanding of where Kwon, because this is the key. Like great projects in Silicon Valley, whether you're thinking about who started Facebook, how Steve Jobs was really the icon at Apple, all of these real great technology wizards are built on great minds. And I think you've got to pay attention to what's happening out there in the space, especially in crypto, because it's so young right now. And there's a lot of new rock stars being built right now as we think about the future of crypto. All right, you're listening on the podcast. Come over here to the YouTube channel. This is where we're going to give you all the breakdown and detail. You'll get a chance to see the charts that we just mentioned. But the only way is right here on the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Make sure and hit me up on Twitter out there at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.